turn off your speaker
Thought I had.
and your mic.
Well, good evening. My name is Dennis Steadman. This is the April 10th meeting of the Patterson Farm Master Plan Implementation Committee. We're starting this at 7:38 because the last meeting ran a bit over. So just waiting to get full access to the Zoom and resources here. We have 4 of the 6 members present, so we have a quorum for the meeting tonight. If you want to introduce yourself, starting on my left.
Red Childs, Secretary.
Peter Solor, Vice Chair.
Good evening, Ron Schmid.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item of business is review and approval of the March 13th meeting minutes. Fred, would you like to take that?
Thanks, Dennis. The March 13th minutes were distributed to the committee. We did have some comments that were sent back to Janelle, and she's completed that, so it's ready for approval.
The minutes were circulated. Are there any comments, corrections, or edits from the committee on those draft minutes? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve as distributed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the minutes are approved. Thank you. We're going to jump into subcommittee updates. As you may know, if you've been following this committee, we have subcommittees focused on the building protection and enhancement first. We have a subcommittee focused on creating the nonprofit and funding, and then a subcommittee on communications, and then the National Registry submission. Those are our 4 subcommittees. So the Building and Protection and Enhancement Committee has been very active because that's where a lot of work is. So for that, I'll turn it over to Peter.
All right. Well, this is going to be nowhere near as lengthy as it was at the last meeting, and I'm going to follow the last meeting's format, just topics, just to make a little bit more sense. Well, on the positive note, we had the budget discussion last time, and the township has managed to continue to expend no further funds. We've gone over the environmental issues. We're still waiting on the phase 2 environmental assessment. I believe that Dennis might have a little bit of an update on that since he talked to Dennis to Dave Kratzer directly.
Yes, I do. On that item, the update was largely the same as it has been for the last couple of months, which is checking the status of funding availability with the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority. I made the request that we need to get estimates and proposals for doing the work of the phase 2. And it's my understanding from you, Peter, that the phase 2, it's could include some small cleanup as well in terms of some of the pesticide containers in the barns and some things like that.
Correct. That's what Dave had pointed out before. Yes, so he was hoping to include that in there, just like we had additional services with the phase 1.
Well, what was clear in my discussion with Dave is the township wants and needs input from this subcommittee, from you, Peter, and Fred and Jenifer, on the scope of that work. I think they don't feel they're in the best position to request proposals at this stage. They need more input from your committee and your expertise on defining the scope of that. And I said I would raise that tonight. If you and Jenifer and Fred can provide the township in writing with additional scope, then they are happy to use that to issue some RFPs and get some proposals in the hopper.
Okay, so I think the phase two should be pretty straightforward from what they have. I think the other, now I'm going to jump out of sequence. The other issues that I understand would be the hazardous materials abatement, which is primarily asbestos,
Mhm,
and potentially the animal waste in Satterthwaite
mhm.
House. Um, Getting the proposals for that. I was already planning after that discussion, the email earlier this week, to put together a scope for that to hand back to Dave so he could get solicitations. I will do the same with the phase two. I thought they had something in place from the redevelopment authority already for a scope, but I will do that too.
Okay,
And the third one is the soil contamination that falls in this bucket, which Fred, Jenifer, and I walked around out there, and given the grading issues at most of the buildings, our assumption is going to be that per the report that was from last year from Remington Vernick, that we're going to be looking at the wholesale removal of all of the soil at all the buildings where we've done the painting work, and plus corresponding grading. So we're probably going to need some engineering for a grading plan. We need to figure out exactly how much we think is going to be necessary for that. And then
Is that-
separate of that would be the soil replacement, regrading and soil replacement to improve the drainage situation.
so for the novice or layperson like myself, the township would be issuing an RFP for the phase two environmental safety assessment, also for the remediation of the asbestos, remediation of some of the hazardous materials. That
Well, we have a two-phase problem there. I think without the phase two assessment, we can't remediate because we don't know what the materials are, which is why it was when Dave brought it up that potentially the phase two that they were going with the redevelopment authority could deal with the small quantities of the materials. That would be a good package deal because then we're not going out and soliciting the remediation of those materials later on. And that's separate and distinct from the asbestos.
okay.
And
So the-
that's standard practice to asbestos and lead paint are considered building environmental risks as opposed to the storage tank and the unlabeled containers, which are considered under the environmental waste category.
Okay.
It's just a distinction in the way that it's set up. Frequently, they're remediated together, but they're distinct legally and liability wise.
Okay, so you're proposing that the phase two can include the removal of the hazardous materials.
Because Dave mentioned that because it was relatively small quantities, that he was hoping that it could be included. So
So
I think
that-
it's a
that-
follow-up.
Hopefully is one project.
Yep.
The asbestos removal remediation.
Which can go out for solicitation right now because we have the reports and the scope. So I will gather that together and hand that over to
Okay,
Dave
that's a
just
second
for-
one. And the third one would be the lead and soil remediation around that subset of buildings after that subset of buildings have been painted.
Correct.
And then where does the buried fuel tank by the corn crib at Patterson fall within those three?
That's part of the phase. That would be a fourth one. That would be after the phase two investigation because they're going to take soil samples as part of the phase two.
Okay. Okay, so that has to follow the phase two. So
Yeah.
that's the fourth.
Because we aren't going to know how much effort is going to need to be to remove or close the tank until they take the soil samples.
Okay.
If it was pumped clean before, it could even be abandoned, and filled with sand and be abandoned in place.
Right,
But
right.
if there was leaking, then we have
Then that's a bigger
a
issue.
bigger issue.
Okay. Okay, so you can provide the township with some greater specificity in helping them issue those 4 RFPs.
Correct. And actually, then we move on to the 5th RFP, which was the discussion at the last meeting to try to move ahead with one of the master plan committee recommendations on at least the design component for the driveway from Yardley Langhorne Road and around the Janney Farmstead.
Right, design component.
At least the design component.
Of the agricultural drive. Okay.
And the new information there is that we did discuss last time that that the township had mentioned that they were going to be doing some survey. We got more specificity on that in the email you received, Dennis, from Dave, that they're going to go out, lay out the property line, and then I guess see if we can get what the likelihood of us getting a street access permit is. But I have to believe that's fairly high, and I don't think that interferes with the process of getting quotes for design. From my perspective, there's no sight line issues that are going to restrict where it goes on that section of road. So I can't see the state, and we're far from both corners, both with Edgewood and with Mirror Lake. So I just don't see where there's going to be any state issues with proceeding with the design.
What is an unknown, at least to me at this point, and I think requires follow-up with Jim Majewski, is to the extent that there are going to be a new access made in that vicinity from the other side, from the 2 apartment buildings that are slated to be built, I understand.
Correct. I mean, those were approved 2 years ago, and there hasn't been a whole lot of progress. But eventually, there will be the apartments going on the corner of Edgewood and Yardley Lane.
I just don't know to the extent that those approved plans already have new accesses from the other side of the road. Does that impact this access that we're going to be requesting? I just don't know that.
Yeah. I think the state's going to be more concerned about the level of traffic. And if we're saying we're restricting it to the farm use only, I don't think it's going to be a real impact from a traffic study perspective.
Okay. Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay. Other reports, Fred, Peter, from your subcommittee.
The only other new item would be that Fred and I went through the Janney house, which I had not done before. And amazingly, that is the one building where the existing reports are approximately close to the condition of the building.
Wonderful. That's
And
wonderful.
and if we hadn't had the asbestos report already in hand, I would have just removed the 2 square feet of asbestos that's in the building. But we have to follow process.
Follow process. Okay. I just got an update this afternoon from David on another related topic, which is the spring painting. And they got an estimated start date from the contractor. Weather permitting, they intend to be on the property starting on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. So that's pretty close at hand, and hopefully they can get underway sooner rather than later. But again, weather permitting, of course.
Actually, there's one more item. It's the Satterthwaite corn crib. That was an update today, I think, wasn't it? That
what I know about that is the township has asked for a proposal from Jeff Hercorn for salvaging of any usable historic timbers that could be salvaged that aren't painted in lead paint, and to dismantle and remove that. The information I had is that the estimate came in a bit higher than what the township had expected. And so Jim Majewski was going back to better clarify the work involved there. And that's the latest I have on that. So the ball is in the township's court. They have an estimate or a proposal, but they haven't acted on it at this juncture. In the topic of building protection and enhancement, the hedge, the yews around the English yews around two sides have been pruned and then repruned. We had the arborist come back. That's going to take a few years of growth and pruning to get those properly shaped and looking like they're well cared for, like the property is well cared for. But that started, and it was important to start that this winter. Not just in terms of the grand priority of things. It's certainly not in the grand priority, but those should be done in the winter months. That kind of heavy pruning, and so we wanted to take advantage of this winter rather than waiting a whole another year to start what will be a multi-year process and not that expensive a one. Anything else from your subcommittee? Nope. Okay, very good. Second agenda item is a report from the Nonprofit and Funding Subcommittee. That's Ron, myself, and Joe Camaratta. I should have said up front that Joe Camaratta and Jenifer Stark send their apologies. They both had conflicts tonight, but we certainly miss their input. On the nonprofit side, the situation really has not progressed in the last 3 months. We talked about in December having a draft of the umbrella lease agreement. We still don't have that. What I do have now is a meeting that is being set up between the township attorney, Dave Kratzer, and myself to discuss what the issues are that is holding up this draft. So we have a meeting scheduled for early next week, and hopefully can break what seems to be a log jam. I think part of it is just the attorney's uncertainty as to the nature of the terms that the township would be comfortable with. She has agreed to meet with both parties. And as we've pointed out, this will be a lease negotiation between two highly aligned and agreeable parties. Both parties have the same goal, which is to improve the Patterson farm and to implement the master plan and to get our community using this property and enjoying this property and having the property restored and preserved. So I don't expect this should not be a difficult agreement to reach. So we just need to start getting some ink on paper, because I believe it's going to require some very specific proposals in order to get either party to be able to react to them. We need to start getting to the meat of it. So that's been a great disappointment, of course, in trying to advance that, because that's the key to progress on this property. It's obvious from the past 15 months that the township is not in a position to implement the master plan. We're proving that each month. So we want to get a nonprofit and a different cost structure, different decision-making structure, and a complementary funding structure to help implement this. And until we do, via nonprofit umbrella lease, I'm afraid we're gonna feel like hamsters on wheels for a while. So let's we're committed to get it done, and I think the township is too. We just need to get some traction. Ron, anything else on this topic from?
No, all I would
people?
say is I would echo what you just said, Dennis, that, unless and until we get the nonprofit agreement signed and the two parties that you mentioned that are very aligned, I think that's the point when we start launching our communications effort.
Right.
I mean, anything now I think is premature and might be viewed as really not answering the major questions. So I'll wait until that time before we start communicating with the community and getting their involvement.
Right. Yeah, I think, any progress that's being made, obviously we want to communicate, but it needs to be visible and tangible. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes, RFPs, proposals with the planning budgets, but that's not visible. So the community is not going to necessarily appreciate that. So appreciate your input, Ron, on the communication side. And I take it that's your communications subcommittee update?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. On the National Registry, I just would want to share one document if I could. Let me bring this up. Joe, as I said, Joe Camaratta cannot be here, but they have been working and making progress for sure in hang on, as I share. Zoom is always telling me that my microphone's off. So let me blow this up just a little. Fortunately, Joe and the in the Lower Makefield Township Historic Commission have been working very closely with the state in preparing this application and gone back and forth with the state and getting their input every step of the way. And they've made progress in that the state has struck certain items. When you look at the application requirement, there's multiple phases. And thanks to their work, they have won concurrence with the state that there are certain elements in this standard pro forma application that simply do not apply here, and they do not have to be responsive to those. So that's progress in that it's trimmed the list of work that they need to be done. So, and I'm not going to go through this in any detail at all, but as you can see in phase one, for example, there's been a number of items that have been struck where they were looking for very specific historical information by specific time periods that were going to be very difficult to put together. There's still a lot of work to be done, to be clear, but just if you just kind of page through this, it's a long and comprehensive drafting that needs to be done, and there's been a fair amount that the state has agreed are not necessary for this particular submission. So this is progress, and it gives it gives the Historic Commission better clarity of exactly where they need to focus their time and energy. So that's very helpful to them. But there's a lot of work to be done. They know what they're doing. They're on top of it. And it's a big task. It's much more complicated task than I ever would have guessed or appreciated. So I know they're making progress is all I have to say on behalf of Joe. Any questions or issues there?
No, I would just say, Dennis, that when the time comes that Joe submits that would be a good launch pad for a communications effort to the community and, building a story around it, I think would be well worth it.
Well, and that application is going to have a lot of information in it
Yeah.
that you and we can pick through that'll be of interest and that will be good grist for the communications mill. Now, we have to remember that will be just a submission.
Yeah.
That's not does not mean it's approved. We fully expect it to be, or we wouldn't make the submission. But the real champagne cork popping is when it's approved, for sure.
Didn't at the last meeting, Joe say it was going to probably be late summer before they even get to the point where this is submittable?
Yes, I think he said that's the third quarter. Originally, we thought this could be submitted by the end of '24. That was the original deadline that we set at the beginning of '24. But as Joe and that commission has worked through the information that was already available, some of which needed to be adjusted, confirmed, and it's just a bigger task than that. And it's a volunteer committee, and we appreciate everything they're doing because it will be fundamental to the nonprofit's ability and the township's ability to win grants and to get federal, state, local funding that carries obviously gravitas and a lot of weight. And in some cases, grants absolutely require that it be listed. So this is it's important work. It'll get done. I don't feel like it's going to hold up much because the nonprofit and the lease agreements are moving so slowly that hopefully we can bring all these things together reasonably synchronized. Other questions or issues on that? Is there any other business? That was really the agenda items. Any other business from the committee? Any other topics to bring up? No. Any public comment? We have a member of the public that would like to comment. Please come forward, state your name, and whether you're a resident of Lower Makefield Township or not. And hello, Bet. Go. Yep.
Okay. Hi, Beth Sovny, 40-plus year resident of Lower Makefield, also executive director of AOI Arts Center. I have some questions. I'm delighted to hear there's a date for the painting. I kind of want to go into it a little bit with you, Peter, about potential, how if they're removing the paint, and if they're sandblasting, if there's any kind of other exposure while I have other people on the property.
There is no sandblasting because that's not allowed. For that matter, even pressure washing has to be done they have to capture all the paint as it comes off.
Okay.
Because it's lead containing. So there's a list of processes and it's built into their contract what they have to do with the paint. So.
Okay, I presume then they'll cordon off the buildings while they're working on them.
Yes, correct. And there'll be plastic around because they have to capture it. There'll be plastic up to about 10 feet out the building on the ground. And that's scraped onto there. They're not removing all the paint. They're just going to remove the loose paint. And the rest of it's going to get covered over with new paint that's going to seal it in, which is an accepted method for dealing with it. So.
Containment, that's fine.
Yep.
So if they're going to put plastic down, I wasn't under the impression that the soil study showed that there was lead contamination at depth?
There's lead contamination at every single building in the
Right,
store.
yeah, at the perimeter, right?
Correct, and that's what we're
Okay.
doing here, yes.
Then how far down does it go?
That, again, that's going to be similar to the paint when we get to the soils remediation, which can't be done until after the paint work is done. It's going to be approximately the top 12 inches of the soil that's removed and replaced, unless our grading requires us to go lower, in which case we'll probably dig lower. Again, it's the same situation.
Like trenching each building and then removing and then filling back?
Correct. That's what's going to happen. Yes. I mean, and we'll deal with drainage grading at the same time.
Good.
Because some places, for instance, the north side of the caretaker's cottage has water running against the building on the wood, which is not desirable in the least. We have to do regrading there. So that'll be part of it. But it's a similar concept to the paint being doing new paint over the lead paint that sticks. The lead paint that's lower in the ground, it doesn't migrate in the groundwater.
Okay,
So it's not a
Oh,
huge
no.
concern, as opposed to, say, if we find out that underground storage tank that's by the corn crib there had a leak in it, that will be a much bigger deal because that can migrate with the groundwater. So
yes, it does.
And so just on the painting bit to continue that, when they're painting, cleaning, capturing and painting, sealing the Janney house, will there be days when AOI has to cease operations because of public access?
I would think it would be just whenever they are on that entrance side, on the south side. Again,
Just
they're
that,
not blasting the building, so it's not like it's being made airborne, but that area when they're actually working on that side would need to be restricted.
that one, when they're working on that one side,
Yeah, because that's
there
where they're
will
at.
be a period of time where AOI cannot have people going in and out. That would be your
During the day, and
during the day.
during the workday for the painters, after hours, presumably they could roll it up and it'd be accessible.
Okay, so we'll want to coordinate, obviously, closely between the painters and yourself. And I'll notify Derek Fuller of this to know, to coordinate when that south side of the Janney house is going to get addressed so that you can schedule or adjust and do what you need to do. Because obviously the township wants to be a good landlord and you want to be a good tenant and everybody wants it painted.
Everybody wants to protect, be protected from all of that
Sure.
shavings and stuff
Sure.
that's happening.
Okay.
So then when you're doing the north side and the dormers on the north side, that wouldn't matter. We wouldn't need to close.
I wouldn't expect to, because generally it's because, again, there's not blasting, there's scraping. And so they'll be collecting it right there on drop cloths or on plastic, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. Is there any status update on the grant that was submitted with the roofing and the dormers and all that?
No, that was submitted and then you're gonna hear, we'll hear closer to the deadline, yay or nay. There's, I don't know of any interim updates or progress kind of reports.
Is that summer or fall? What's,
One of them was the fall and the other was the end of the year. Was that, do I remember that right? I think the smaller one was, I'm not sure. One of them was like in September and the other was the end of the year, I thought. And I just,
not for a while.
not for a while. Right, right.
Okay. I have a new topic. Okay, now that the hedges look so nice and the township came in and cleaned up the yard between the Janney house and the hedge.
Yeah,
There's a corner, right there where it turns. There's a corner that is just aching for some beautification, okay? And it's not near the building, so I don't think I have to wait for the building. And I've spoken with Alan and the Environmental Council that maybe they could help, and we've got some master gardeners. So would there be any objection to us proceeding with that? It's going to be, it's all going to be natural, not natural, native, native shrubs and flowers.
okay.
Throw it.
Certainly, I know the corner of which you speak. It is screaming for a little TLC, a little tender loving care. Uh, I, I personally have no objection. I know we're far away from any kind of landscaping plan. That's kind of way down the path. But if through volunteers and the organizations you cite, some work could be done, uh, I don't think this committee would have any objection. I would just, I will check with the township. It's their property. They need to give that permission, obviously, but this committee would support
Yeah,
such
I'm going to work with
activity.
the EAC on the plantings and make sure that they are approved plantings and
Yeah.
that they're not going to cause any problems.
Yeah, and it could be a combination of, perennial native plants or, simply colorful annuals. I mean,
Right now.
anything to beautify is a step in the right direction.
Very good.
Is there anything that with the design, the master plan design for access in that area? As
No,
far as
if-
improvements to the
If and when.
driveway or?
That comes in, there's a parking, asphalt parking space that's on the other side of the hedge that would give access, but that's not where we're talking.
It's kind of a dead end corner at the L, where the L of the hedge comes together. It's all dirt right now, and it's surrounded by lawn.
There's a couple of azaleas. There's a burning bush. And we tried to plant a dogwood, but we planted it during the heat of last year and it didn't work. But
And when the hedge trimming took place, they also removed some volunteer deciduous trees that had grown up through the hedge, which is the definition of a weed, a plant in the wrong place. And they removed those weeds, and they were getting really pretty tall and contributing to the shade. So hopefully, with some of those scrub trees now gone and the hedge under a little more control, maybe we can get the lawn a little healthier back there too, with a little more sun coming through. Yeah, like I say, I can take, I'll ask the township if they have any objection to
don't have
that.
to yet.
Hmm?
Let me work with the EAC and
Okay,
we'll go.
all
through
right,
channels.
that's fine.
Okay.
Just get the township permission. That's the one
course.
that counts. Yeah.
So that's like the southeast corner or so?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Southeast.
So, and you could save yourself trips because their meeting is immediately prior to this one.
I know. I just saw them.
I was just pointing out she could just come at 6:30 and do the two meetings.
Very good.
All right, so
no.
Joe had talked about the grants at the last meeting. I understand you weren't here. The smaller grant that just went in at the start of last month, they're anticipating announcements in June with the award in September. The larger grant was part of some state program where the township had other grant applications in. Apparently that one's under a rolling review, and we were approved for the tub grinders for the township, which they now have gotten. So hopefully that will put a more positive light on the application for
Yeah.
Right.
repairs. But the issue was we already had been issued a grant and we weren't utilizing it, which we now have.
Very good.
I believe that was all a correct repeat of all the information we had on that.
Oh, yes, Dennis, if you could remind Derek to please give us at least like 48 hours if we have to close. the-
48, yeah, a minimum of 48 hours.
Yeah, that would be good.
Right.
Okay. And on communications, Ron, you're going to wait until the registry grant to talk to people? No.
Well, so I'm looking for things that will launch this whole effort. To me, what launches the effort is the creation of this agreement, the larger nonprofit, and then the agreement with both of the groups, AOI and the other. To me, we've been waiting for that. I don't see right now a lot of news to to get out there to the community.
You're not
Um,
going to tell them about the painting.
We could talk about the painting,
Because I told him about the hedges, and you could tell there was a
right?
whole lot of interest.
And you did get a response to that on Facebook. That's true. I mean, we could, if we think about it, this is what, May 5th, did you say, the
Yep.
painting?
That's the schedule.
We could get an announcement out that on May 5th, it's going to be painting, invite some of the community members to it. I mean, that could be interesting. It's a kind of a feel-good thing, and it shows that we're getting started. I was hoping, however, that the overall effort would be a little more tied together, but perhaps we have to take it in pieces.
Take a couple
That
small
maybe,
wins.
maybe if,
Well,
like, how much painting is going to be done that day? It's going to be a lot of painting?
No, it's going to be spread across several weeks. I'm assuming that they're just going to put a 2 or 3 man crew out there. The way it's been described and the way I've seen it done, probably going to pick a building to start with. Maybe actually we recommend the Janney House because then it's done before you get to summer.
Before the summer camp.
Before summer camps, yeah. Add that to the request to Derek. But yeah, it's going to be over a period of time. They've got a lot of space to cover, and it's not like they're going to put 20 people out there. They're not that large of a company anyways, from what I saw in the interview.
it's gonna certainly take some time, and I'm also thinking, to your point, before summer, when do the summer camps start, Bet?
Say the third week of June.
Third week of June. I think it would be important that any buildings in close proximity to the summer camp, in other words, not only the Janney House, but the caretaker cottage, if maybe the first garage.
Yeah, the garage, there too, yeah.
Those buildings most closest be done first, so that they're done and out of the way before the third week of June. That would certainly make sense. I think we can talk to Derek about that. Okay. Third week of June.
Let us kick it around some more,
On the
okay?
on the communications on that, just a couple things. One, the next quarterly LMT newsletter is coming out, and I know we talked about the painting in that. We submitted that over a month ago.
Yeah.
That'll be out shortly, so that'll be hitting the ground, I guess, in a matter of weeks here, maybe close to May 5th. And this could be totally crazy, and I'm interested in your reaction, everyone's reaction. This process of lead painting and sealing, it might be interesting. Again, I'm questioning myself as I start to say it, to actually organize a time, an hour on a given Saturday or a given day where we invite the public out, and yourself or someone from this contractor explains what's going on, explains what's involved in the remediation of this lead-based paint, how they're sealing it. They're only taking off the loose flakes. They're not, they're capturing any lead-containing materials in the process. Because I think the more the community understands the process, the better they appreciate why it takes time, why it takes so much money, how complicated these things can become. And it'd be an educational forum as much as anything else. I don't know. What is that? Is that overkill? Is that too much? Reactions?
Go ahead.
I mean, it could be done. I just don't know how people would take to it. I just don't know.
I don't either. But those
some people might overreact to that sort of scenario too. I just don't know.
No, I understand.
I think it has pros and cons, Dennis. The pros are it's going to show we're trying to educate. It's going to show that there's a process, and then this is the process that's in place. The painting, you got to get all this stuff out of the ground before we can really move forward. The con is that kind of overlooking the bigger picture, and
Right.
et cetera.
Right. Well,
It's
let's,
worth kicking around some more though.
let's kick it around
Yeah,
a little bit.
sure.
We, yeah, let's, let's take it under advisement, as they say. Okay. But to the extent that there is publicity around that, I would, my gut reaction is to wait till they're actually started, because we might announce May 5th and it's May 10th because of the weather or scheduling or whatever. So maybe once it's underway, if there is a kind of a release, something to put it out once we know it's underway, would be my one thought. All right. Any other public comment? Thank you for your interest in coming out to ask questions and have comments. Thank you. Okay. Review of next steps and assignments. Fred?
Dennis, you mentioned the meeting next week with the township and the solicitor on the master lease agreement. And also, I think you took on speaking with Derek and township staff about the coordinating the painting and scheduling.
The time scheduling, yes. Yeah, I'll do that.
Peter's going to work on RFP scopes for the various. I think there's 4 or 5 potential RFPs that the township will need to solicit proposals for.
Yeah, those 5. And Peter, your call and what level of specificity you want to go to, can go to, and how to best deliver that to Derek and
No,
Jim.
understood. So they're going to be they're going to be different. Like the asbestos will be a very hard. Here's from the reports consolidated. Here's your appendices. Prep it for whatever boilerplate they need to put on the top, and they can put it out for bid. I think like the phase 2, I need to know where they're at also, because that they're going to the redevelopment commission, they're getting extra with it. That's different than if we try to solicit it and we get a standard, just an environmental firm that does the study part.
Right.
We'd end up paying them to have somebody else do the physical work, and we're just paying markups. So,
Right. Well, with respect to the redevelopment authority, it's my understanding that they have there's some uncertainty as to whether they have this funding or not, or whether they have a bucket in which they can make this fit. And so to some degree,
well, then
we can't assume that it will be done that way. It may be just that we're issuing an RFP.
okay, then we're going to just, it could just be a standard, do a phase 2 RFP, and it's going to use the phase 1 study, which is going to say you're going to focus on these areas. Here's all the background information. Normally, the firm that does the phase 2 is the firm that does the phase 1. You add it by modification, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case here.
Okay.
Or how this is going to work because of the
funding
redevelopment
source.
the funding source. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe we should just set up a call with yourself and Jim Majewski, David and I, to talk through just that. If that's so amorphous.
It is, and it's it's a higher priority. And like I said, the asbestos is too, just getting it out of the way makes our lives easier.
Yeah.
But I can put that together pretty easily. So same thing even with the soil. I think all discussion is going to need to be how much design effort do we think there is for drainage going to be necessary. And I could talk to Jim some about that, about what his experience has been with past projects in the township, so.
Uh, With the dismantling of the Satterswaith corn crib, I'm presuming that there is soil there that will need abatement.
It would fall underneath what was already scoped as around the perimeter of all the buildings.
Okay.
Although, because we weren't painting it, well, no, the actual scope was all the buildings with the 977 yards. Remington Burnick
Right,
tested
right.
everywhere. The issue is if we don't paint Satterthwaite Farmhouse, then obviously we're not remediating the soil at Satterthwaite Farmhouse, so.
But that corn crib, even though it's gone, that will require remediation,
Yes.
obviously. Okay. Okay.
But although in that case, we could just get, because the corn crib's gone, we don't have to worry about grading. Could just put clean dirt on top of it is a easy solution and you don't have to haul it off.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Well, with those estimates, was there anything else beyond that, those short list of assignments?
I didn't pick up on anything else other than our discussion about
Okay.
communications.
Okay.
for,
Right.
um,
Right. We'll continue to think about the,
Yeah, I think,
the Cinco de Mayo paint starting.
yeah, if we can collect a series of things like that, the painting, perhaps some other activities that are going on, because Bet's absolutely correct. When she sent out a Facebook page about some things that were going on, it received a lot of communication. I mean, there were probably about 20 responses, Bet, to more than that, to what she put out. So it's probably worth thinking about putting a list together of some of these things that are coming up, aside from the big issues about the not-for-profit, and begin to make some noise about it. Yeah.
All right. All right.
The next scheduled meeting would be May 8th, second Thursday in May. I don't recall if Katie McLean has sent out.
Katie has not issued calendars for May and June yet, but we have been consistently that second Thursday of the month. So, but that is, it's not formalized, but I think that's what we can safely plan on. Does anybody have a known conflict right now with that date?
No, because it's not the 9th. If it was the 9th, I would because it's my wife's birthday.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I may have a
We-
conflict.
We don't want to get you into trouble.
I might.
I,
Looks like I have a conflict.
I don't think I do.
okay, okay. All right. With that, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much, and thank you for your attention. Thank this committee for all their efforts.